And so now I want to go through and get introductions from each of our panelists. So we'll go in alphabetical order, starting with Dima, then Keith, and then finally ending on Matt. So Dima, why don't you go ahead and just give us a quick intro about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Dima or Dmytro, whatever you can call me. So Dmytro is official, Dima is like shortened name. I'm a data scientist for the last like 5 years approximately. And before that, I spent more than a decade being basically a pure scientist, so having a PhD in astrophysics and that a lot of data analysis, data science, data modeling, data engineering as well. And my basically creation started even before I became the professional data scientist. So the story was that I was being a part of Udacity program for it's called Data Science Nano Degree, and they basically recommended their participants to post their findings in Medium, and that's why I became like a creator. So two of my posts it became like 2018. One of them was then invited towards data science, which was that time probably not as popular as now, but it was a nice experience, and that's why when I coming back to kind of being more creative person just a year ago or year and a half ago approximately. So I decided to just to continue my Medium blog. Yeah, so that's a quick introduction for me. Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Dima. Keith?
Took me a second to know if I was next or Matt was next, just because the alphabetical order thing here, we're going to try to do K and M. They're close letters. But hello, everyone. I'm Keith Galli. I guess a little about me is I've been making YouTube videos primarily in the programming, data science, educational space for the past like 6-ish years. I got into it while I was a student at MIT studying computer science. I did my undergrad and master's at MIT. And I think, I've just always loved teaching and learning. And currently, in addition to YouTube content creation, I've been pretty involved in the startup space. So I was at a company called Posh for 4 years, and now I'm at a company called Creator, both very early stage startups. So it's been fun kind of balancing the content creation with learning all the skills in the data programming world in the startup setting.
That's awesome. Thanks for being here, Keith. And then finally, we have Matt.
Hi, Matt Blasa, lead data scientist, Aspire Analytics. I've been in the data science space in some form or another, from data analyst to the current role that I'm in for the last 7 years in different forms. Basically started out doing this data science stuff when I was in the math department, doing pure math stuff, mostly because I just was curious on how to model like features in the world. And Shaw can even tell you I'm really interested in the physics side of things and the systems engineering. Got into content back in 2020. Really not actually a very interesting story. It was just like I was bored during lockdown and I said, okay, so well, I need to socialize with people. I can't go anywhere. So I just started creating content, just really started like trying to share my knowledge just so I can like give back to like the people who were there before, who are coming in behind me. So really just a very like educational focus on that. Mostly do do different things. A newsletter, and then also like a video on YouTube. Not as big as Keith. Not as big as Keith.
Awesome. So let's just kind of get into the discussion. And we'll kind of go in the same order. We'll start with Dima, then we'll go to Keith, and then we'll go to Matt. But I want to kind of start at the beginning, and you guys already kind of touched on like what got you into content creation. But I'm really curious about like, why you got into it, and then why do you continue to do it? Because it's not something that's necessarily easy. You know what I mean? Being easy is just like going to your job, getting your paycheck, and then like watching Netflix in your downtime or something like that. So like, why do you continue to make content? And what value are you getting out of that? So we'll start with you, Dima.
Yeah. Thank you. So really, like a lot of reasons for me was about that. So I would start with the reason, kind of what I can contribute probably to people I don't know. So maybe they can avoid some of the like mistakes I made, or maybe they can do some of the like learnings faster and be like more better like professionals that I was at their stage. It also was also important for me. Like I have a full-time job, so it was not like startup consultancy, entrepreneurship, or something like that. But it was rather about like sharing the knowledge with people and trying also to acquire feedback and probably to learn from that as well. When I was a scientist, I also like dedicated probably 10% of my time. It was popularization of science. So I spoke like a lot of like during the decade about dark matter, dark energy, cosmology, whatever, black holes. So a lot of things that excite people. And I found even more exciting thing in data science, especially now with LLM boom and Gen AI and so on. But not only that. So that was my motivation.
Yeah, that's really cool. Just like helping those kind of coming up behind you, or maybe who are at a earlier stage than you are right now. Yeah, let's jump over to Keith.
I feel like my path into YouTube was kind of fun. I think when I was a student at MIT, I think I kind of had a quarter life crisis a bit of like not knowing what to do next. I think my whole childhood, adolescence, like growing up, I just loved teaching, or I mean, I loved learning, and I also kind of reciprocally loved teaching. I loved tutoring, and I didn't see myself wanting to become a teacher, at least right away, as far as what to do after MIT. But I was just like, didn't know what to do because I think a lot of the traditional pathways, going into like, let's say Wall Street consulting, working at a big tech company, they weren't super exciting to me. And I was just like, I loved this teaching and learning process. As I was just kind of like, how can I make this more into what I do, more of a business? And so I guess at the same time, kind of a side note is that when I was in high school, there was no math class available to me when I was a senior. So I learned Calculus 2 entirely through YouTube. And I just loved YouTube as a platform, as a place to learn. So I was like, all right, why don't I start teaching on YouTube? I didn't know what I was going to teach at first. First ever video I made on my channel was a Connect 4 strategy video. I just knew that I was good at the game and I could maybe teach someone something. Still actually one of my most popular videos, 6 years later, which is kind of funny. But I think that kind of led me to be like, okay, what can I teach on YouTube? How can I bring value that way? And being trained as a computer scientist, it kind of led me to making tutorials on data science and programming. And then I guess why I still do it, I think it's still very fun to learn different topics and have an opportunity to teach others about those topics. So it's a great learning opportunity, as well as it just has opened up a lot of other doors. I mean, being on panels such as this, like there's just a lot of cool opportunities that come out of putting yourself out there. And I think that's one of the most exciting things that I still, keeps me coming back.
Yeah, I really resonate with that journey of like learning and like teaching are so intermingled. Like teaching is probably one of the best ways to learn. Um, and yeah, I think, and that's why the title of this discussion is learning by creating, kind of in that vein of, one of the best ways to learn is by creating content. And then we'll finally go to you, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I got into like the content creation partially because I really wanted to like not just help other people, but also like to get perspective and feedback. Sometimes when you're doing a lot of this stuff, like you're building these models or you're even building out use cases or trying to understand exactly what your client or your manager wants, you don't really have that kind of perspective that you would get unless you taught someone. So sometimes, like when I'm building out this stuff, I'm just like, wait, this stuff is so ordinary. Why am I doing this? This isn't impressive, or this isn't very interesting. But then you start to find out, oh, there's other people who have an interest in it, like who are coming in from behind you. So the data science field right now isn't the same as like when it was 5 years ago. So there's more people coming through it. And like Keith said, it's really about like helping these people find out, oh, I don't want to make you to make the same mistakes I did. Don't go through the same like path that I did, so that they can iterate on what they're doing, so that we can learn from them. Some of the best things I've ever learned were from random beginners who commented on a post and said, yeah, but what about this situation? And you're just there and you're like, oh, that's a good point. And when you see that, then that actually helps you do that. So the idea for me is not only to get them to like, that keeps me going, content creation, is to get that feedback. Not just from the beginners either. Sometimes when you go to the execs or you go to the the management or upper management levels, you start to find out they also have those questions too. But then your feedback is different. Whereas with the people coming behind you, the feedback is, so what are the basics? What are the fundamentals? With the people on the other side, it's what are the basics and what are the fundamentals, and how do you monetize this? How do we prove value? And how can we make it more than just like how we build the model? Because then you start to get like the real perspective of how it's applied. And often the tolerances you find out on that end are a lot lower than, let's say, like in a science application. Some of and it's interesting to get that perspective, because not only you can bounce back between the two, you can take what you learned from the people who are learning from you, who are behind you, and then apply the same knowledge to help the people who are in the business, and then take what the business is and give the people who are coming behind you the reason why they need to be doing it this way.
Yeah, that's a really cool perspective. I hadn't really like thought about like these two different audiences, like the students and like the stakeholders, in a sense, and how they can kind of like feed off of each other, uh, with kind of promoting or driving your content. So the kind of next thing I want to explore is like after you kind of got started and you were kind of doing this thing and you were learning like what it means to be a content creator, like what your content creation process looks like. What was something that was unexpected or even surprising about being a content creator that you didn't see coming, like as like an outsider, essentially? We'll start with Keith to kind of get Dima out of the hot seat.
I think if thinking kind of tapping into the kind of the game changer type word, like what was kind of a game changer when making content. I think, yeah, looking back at my history with video creation, I always loved making videos growing up. But that was like videos of me skateboarding or snowboarding. It was just kind of like things that I like to do as hobbies. So one of the big first game changers was like, all right, what ways can I bring value to people? What ways can I, how can I bring a bigger audience to me? And education was one way to do that. And then I think, as I grew this educational YouTube channel, another thing that was definitely a game changer is it's always such a challenge figuring out what to make next. There's just this endless amount of possibilities of what to make next. And it's like, how do you pick the best option? And I learned the best way to go about that is to not pick for yourself, but let your audience pick for you. So a good example of this that that has happened, at least on my channel, is one of my most popular videos is this solving real world data science problems video, where we walk through like an hour worth of just Python pandas exercises with a real data set. And the way that I came to making that video was I basically had like 4 ideas of videos to make. I put a poll up on my YouTube channel and I just let people vote for the option they were most interested in. This solving real world data science problems was the far favorite. So I was like, all right, there's something here. And then I proceeded to, once I narrowed in on that video, ask the audience again of what should be included in this video. What topics are you struggling with? What is challenging? What could you use a further explanation on? And let people bring all sorts of ideas, upvote people's ideas suggested. And I think by gathering all of this feedback from audience, and people that were going to be consuming the videos, it really made the video be something that resonated with a wide number of people. And knowing that your audience can be so impactful like this, I think definitely has been a game changer and something that I need to keep coming back to. I sometimes get too much in my own lane, but using the audience effectively is definitely a game changer in my perspective.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I feel like that's something I could definitely do a better job of getting the audience feedback, because it kind of, it kind of does two things. One, it helps you figure out what to post next, but it also kind of susses out like the highest value content that you could be creating. What about you, Matt? What was something that was surprising or like a game changer in your content creation journey?
It's definitely the, oh my goodness, that I have to keep learning, because you like some of them, some of the most simplest concepts are actually hardest to understand, and then they have a huge range of application. So like even just like the data curation, these kinds of things, you think it's, oh well, yeah, it's just pulling something in from a CSV or something. But then when you're building out, like when you're saying some of this stuff, whether it's data strategy or or AI strategy or anything like this, somebody always pops up and says, hey, what about this angle? And that always is a, come to oh my goodness moment, because you're like, wait, I understood these parts around it, but I didn't understand this part around it. It's like the dark side of the moon. You don't see it. And that really forces you to go, oh, okay, and start looking this up and really like digging into that side of it, because there's always another perspective to all of this. So when you're doing content creation, it's not just like you're learning, but you're also getting feedback, and sometimes even from the trolls, because the trolls will sometimes say something really interesting in a bad way, but very interesting, and then you're like, oh, okay, so then you have to look it up. And I definitely would say that the learning part of this is so big, because you're getting feedback all the time from somebody in some form or another. And it's not always the most pleasant, but it forces you to keep going forward. So definitely it's the feedback and the constant learning.
Yeah, that resonates with me. Just this morning, I got some I don't know, hate comments on TikTok, and it like it's good because it gets you to stop and reflect on like your opinions and like your worldview and perspective on these things. So yeah, that feedback, whether it's positive or negative, is super valuable. And then what about you, Dima?
Yeah, I can only agree with what Keith and Matt said as well. But let me also add like another perspective. So what was kind of unexpected for me is something that basically Yushua pointed out recently in the paper of power laws. So the power of power laws, or something like that. That some of your content may be much more valuable. I mean, like many times more than the next to the best, and so on. So, and it was really hard for me for that time to imagine what was the reason behind that. And I have found it later in a nice basically YouTube video by Zuli Rain. And I also wrote an article, like Medium article, about that with my like add-ons and insights about that. So and in short, it means that basically there is no correlation between, say, the size of your audience for many systems, and say the virality or the probability that the article went viral. But rather, it's important that your audience kind of accept that and kind of positively discuss that, including the external resources as well. So usually, like a good recommender systems, they basically take this point and they promote it even more, because they are very like interested to promoting the highest value content. So there is certain type of competition, and because of that, basically it arises this power law.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like content creation is like this world of like power laws and fat tails, and if you don't know what that means, it's basically a land of inequality. And so maybe you guys are familiar with the Pareto principle, like 80% of sales come from 20% of customers. So like that 20% of customers has a lot more weight than most that majority of 80%. And content creation is the same way, where like one article can make up like 50% of your reads, or one video can make up 50% of your views, or something like that. And so like kind of that's kind of hard for us humans to cope with, because we kind of get pulled in one direction. Like we get super happy because this piece of content does well, and then we get depressed when the other nine pieces of content do bad. But kind of like that just kind of learning to cope with that and navigating that as a creator is something that I think is something people have to learn in this space. Okay, so I'm going to just do one more question because I want to make sure we have time for Q&A, and I see more and more people are joining the audience. So we'll kind of do like a broad question. What advice would you give someone that wants to get into content creation in this space? Whether they are, a student and just learning data science, or whether they're a seasoned veteran but they're new to content creation. And then we'll start with you, Matt.
Okay, I'm gonna blow people's mind. When you're in the first year, ignore the algorithm. Seriously. The first year, you have to actually get a sense of like what resonates with you first, because if you start chasing like viral content, it's chasing the wind. And sometimes mentally you can lock yourself into like what's not your voice and actually what you're interested in. I mean, I made that mistake my first year. I was talking about like I forget even what I was talking about, but I started to like test a little bit more. So like, okay, so what do I need to like talk about? And then once you test like what you're interested in talking about, then you can like test different angles. It's if you're going from 0 to, let's say, 5,000 people, at that point the people who are looking at it, it's pretty small. So you have to actually slowly develop like the crowd that around you that's interested in that. That's specifically interested in that. Like for example, I know one guy who does nothing but data governance. I mean, snore topic. I love it, but the he's developed his audience from 0 to 10,000 simply just by keep talking about it and slowly building it. And he gets like 100, 200 like on that. But those are the audience are built around him is definitely like interested in that topic. So when you're at the beginning, just post what you like to what you're interested in. Ignore the algorithm somewhat. Follow it, but just follow the framework, but talk about what you're interested in a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's really important. When you're first starting out, just exploring like what you are interested in, because like the worst thing is you kind of get locked into a niche that you don't even enjoy. You know what I mean? Maybe I start talking about LLMs because that's really hot right now, but I don't really have a passion for LLMs, and I want to talk about all these other things. And so, yeah, that's a really good point. Let's jump over back to Dima.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say I would definitely agree with Matt. So do not leave your passion, right? Just about this, and I would add like also kind of a not a plan, but some kind of expectations, like what is the minimum and maximum amount of time you need to do that. Because for me, I would say consistency is the key. So during the first year, you might expect you need to write consistently, so your audience will not forget that you're the content creator, and you need to gather your audience like consistently and so on. So depending on the platform, it may be like different schedules. So I would expect like YouTube videos may take more time because you need to prepare something. But say articles like Medium, LinkedIn, it would be easier because you just write and sometimes polish it. So for me, finally it kind of ends up with 1 or 2 or 3 hours maybe per article, which might be much less than for a decent video, right? And so on. So you need to understand that kind of budget, so you will not burn yourself in this passion. And then after probably a year or so, maybe half a year at least, you may start like looking, are you happy with the progress, and what are the other steps and so on.
Yeah, that's really important. Like the consistency and also being more like habit based, having habit based goals. Like I'm gonna spend, 1 hour a week writing, or like I'm gonna spend like 2 hours a week focused on YouTube videos, as opposed to I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year or something like that. All right, Keith, what about you? Any advice for new content creators?
Definitely. I think the starting point that I always recommend with just content creation as a very broad spectrum is asking yourself the question of like, what value can I bring with the content that I produce? For me, the niche that I found myself into was education, teaching people about data, teaching people about programming. But value is a very broad topic, and you just want to make sure that you have something that you're going towards. So, like, if you're a comedian, making people laugh and smile is the value you bring, and really just wanting to tap into that. So, making sure you have focus in the value that you bring is very important. But I think alongside that, and this is definitely hitting up what Matt said, is make sure you have fun doing this. Make sure you enjoy what you're bringing, what content you're making. I think one quote that definitely encapsulates a lot of what everyone has been saying. I think I might be misattributing this, but I think it's from Rick Rubin, basically that all you can do is control the inputs. You can't control the outputs. So make sure that like what you're plugging into the inputs makes you happy, makes you excited. Because at the end of the day, if the outputs aren't what you want, maybe you don't get any subscribers. Maybe no one sees some of the things that you post. If you learn something, if you had fun in the process, that's very meaningful in itself. So I guess those are my two pieces of advice. What value do you bring? And then just make sure you enjoy the process.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Like you can't control the output, so worrying and stressing about that is just gonna put you in a pretty bad situation. So that's a great way to kind of close the panel discussion. And now we want to open it up for Q&A. So if you guys have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or hit that hand raise icon at the bottom of your screen, and we'll invite you up on stage so you can ask your question to the panel. So we've got years of, we got a question from Manny. Yep, come on up, Manny.
Hey, sure. Hey, guys. Hey, I
Hello.
have a question.
Hello.
So the question is related to the input, that is related to the tools and processes that can help with video content creation. So let me tell my scenario so that it will be helpful for you to suggest some advice or solution. The thing is, I'm planning to I'm not planning. I'm in the process of creating some video tutorials, like a full course tutorial, and I also have the content ready, everything. But the problem what I'm seeing is when I start recording, it's like taking like a long time. Like for example, if I want to make a short tutorial for 5 to 10 minutes, it easily takes somewhere between 30 minutes to 1 hour to record the video, and next 30 minutes to edit it. So this takes for just 10 minutes video for recording and editing all those stuff. So I want to make a full course video that will come to around like 2.5 hours or 3 hours. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. So what I'm seeing is, because of the time delay and the effort involved, it gets dragged every day. For example, if I kept a target to finish the course by November end, but not able to do because of this much effort involved, because I also have a full-time job to do. So after that, every day when I try to do this, right? So preparing the content and other stuff and all, I feel it's okay. But when I get into this process of preparing, recording the video, editing, this takes a lot of time. So as a beginner in video content creation, advice I want from you guys is is there any tools or processes like I can uh, make use of that can help us or speed up the process in video content creation? At this moment, I'm using flashback recorder for video recording, and I'm using this shortcut video editor tool for editing processes. So this is what I'm doing at this moment, but I would like to get some advice on a process or tools, whatever it is, can help us speed up the video content process so that I will be able to post more video contents and stuff like taking more days. So this is the question I wanted to ask you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, anyone want to take that one?
This very much hits home for my own content creation process. So I'm happy to take that and provide a couple pieces of information that might help you out, Manny. I think first off, I think it is just a challenge of the educational content creation process, the tutorial content creation process. Most of my most popular videos are an hour plus long. And to be honest, I feel like many of those courses I might have spent 20 to 40 hours in total making that 1 hour video because you're planning, you're filming, you're editing. It all takes a lot of time. And I think that there's, in some regards, no getting around that. But there are some things that have definitely helped me out. I think one is on the actual video editing side. I use Adobe Premiere Pro. I don't think it really matters what exact software you use, but one thing that has helped me out a ton is developing some shortcuts. So if there's a routine that I'm doing a ton, I have like very much shortcut keys that I can just press on my keyboard to do that. So a lot of times it's like just slicing clips and like pulling them back. I just have one key I press, it does that automatically for me. A lot of good tutorials on YouTube on how to do that and learn different key presses, different strategies like that. Another thing, and this is definitely, only accessible to a certain number of people. It might be tougher if you're just getting started, but leveraging outside resources more and more is one thing that I've been trying to do more recently. So having an editor that I work with, and how I've approached this is I've made a couple looms of my editing process. I've just videotaped what I'm doing to edit, showing the steps I take, and I've passed that to my editor and say, hey, can you like do this process for me? So I also have limited time to make videos. So by bringing in other people, I can kind of parallelize and really focus on what's most important, which is the actual recording of the tutorial and not focusing as much time on the retroactive editing of the tutorial. One final piece of advice, I recommend building like a content library. So any sort of things that you do routinely in your videos, just having a folder of all of those resources ready and handy that you're always adding to, that you can always just quickly pull from. So if there's an end screen that you have, like just have that already pre-made and just pull it in. A couple tips. Hopefully that is a starting point.
Yeah, that's really good. Matt, Dima, anything to add? All right, cool. Oh, were you gonna say something, Dima?
Yeah, I would agree. So the same technique works for text as well, because I don't work with video, but if you ever like do the same with text, so it's good to have all the drafts in one place, and then you can copy paste or just add the reshuffling around that. So it's really useful.
Yeah, that's really helpful. All right, thanks for the question, Manny.
Oh,
We got another
have one.
one. Oh, Matt, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so you need to create a process roadmap, like really create a roadmap of the content you want to do. Like really spend time like really mapping out like what content that you're creating. So like for example, if I was creating something about AI strategy, then I would start like breaking it down. So break it down to its smallest part. So your goal, you have to think about like what your larger goal is, like what's your audience. If your audience is, hey, I want to talk to executives or VPs or whatever about the what like how to do AI strategy, for example, then break it down into the smaller parts, like define it. What are the fundamentals? These sort of parts. Each of those can be a video, an article, or something else. And then when you have each of those on there on the roadmap, rearrange them. After rearranging them, start actually thinking about the objectives. What does the audience want to do? And limit it down to 2 or 3 that you want them to have. Because sometimes some of the best articles I've found, great amount of information, very interesting. But the point's hard to understand because they're so rambling. So a lot of this I found out goes down to process orientation. So if you have work or something happens and just say, oh, okay, I can't do it, then you can always go back to that roadmap and say, hey, this is where it is in the sequence. And it also gives you a chance to be able to link back to, let's say, a video or an article that you had before, which enhances the theme and brings people back, keep back in and keep going at it.
Yeah, that's really good. So we had like having a process, having assets ready to go, whether it's text or video, and also having these like shortcuts, like keyboard shortcuts on any video editing software you might be using. Thanks for the question, Manny. We got another one from Paymon. Are there any suggestions on which social media platforms to start or focus on? I guess this is kind of a interesting question. We got we got creators on 3 different platforms. So anyone want to kick us off?
I'll do it. So I would say go with what's your natural sense. So like if you're a visual person, start out with video. See like how you do it. You should be able you should test out each of these out. So like test a little bit of video, test a bit of the writing, see how like you feel and how you react back to it. Like if you know you're like a visual person, video. If you already know that you're like an audio person, try your hand at a podcast. And if you know you can write better than you can like do any of this other stuff, then try your hand at writing. And especially like if you're, let's say you're doing LinkedIn, this other stuff, see if it's a try it like a think of it like a game. So see if you can like boil the concept down to its most simple elements and use that as an upper funnel thing to be able to pull people back into the writing where you can explain more, or pull it back into like a video, or pull it back into a podcast. The point is that the LinkedIn should be a way to be able to summarize and boil it down in your head so that they can get more information and the right target audience is coming into the content that you really want. So I would always start with like your strengths. Lean into your strengths. That's the biggest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's really important. Just kind of doing what's easy in a sense, just starting there and evolving from that. Keith, Dima, anything to add?
I think it also depends on the type of content you make. I would say if your goal is to teach and educate, I think that long form content is more effective. I think there's only so much that you can teach in like shorts or just different, or at least I'm just very much focusing on long form video content and short form video content. I think that long form is better from an educational teaching perspective. With that in mind, though, I would say sometimes it's best to get in with what's most accessible. So it's a lot, as we kind of touched on with Manny's question, it's a lot more work to, make a really long tutorial. It takes a long time to make a full course. So maybe just as you're getting your kind of feet wet, getting started, start with just posting on X/Twitter or posting on LinkedIn with just short little things that are getting those gears turning. And as you get those gears turning, you can get more and more in depth. You can start making videos. You can start recording podcasts. But I think you just need to throw yourself into it and slowly let that build. And if getting into it is just posting once a week on Twitter, a short message, I think that's great. That's a great starting point. You can build off that.
Dima, anything from you?
Yeah, I would say so. I would definitely agree, and would add that you might need to explore again the algorithms as well. So because it might change your strategy. Basically, like the platform can, for example, promote like shorter content over the longer content, and you want to write longer content, so it might be a problem, right? And vice versa. So just look what are the top content of other creators look like, and take your decision like carefully.
Yeah, I like that. Kind of like seeing what's out there and seeing what resonates with you and using that as like a jumping off point. Um, I'll also add to this. Kind of for me, my journey started during grad school where I was writing this huge PhD dissertation. And what I would do is just copy paste sections of that onto Medium to make these articles. And then I was already making slides for my PhD defense, and I would just take those slides and just like record a video of me talking over them and posting them on YouTube. So that's where it really started for me. So it was kind of toward this direction of like that was easy because I was already writing the dissertation. I was already making slides and preparing my PhD defense. I think there's also something to say on about posting on multiple platforms and kind of like making the content like linked together. So like all my blogs will have a video associated with it. So maybe an article goes viral on Medium, but not so much on YouTube. It'll the audience drawn in from YouTube, from Medium, will trickle over to YouTube and vice versa. And then also adding like a kind of more casual social media platform like LinkedIn has also benefited me because it kind of gives me an opportunity to take snippets from my articles or my YouTube videos and sharing them on LinkedIn and using that as like a sort of lead magnet for the longer form content. All right, so let's see. Manny was asking for everyone's links. Dima dropped his. Keith and Matt, feel free to drop your links in the chat for anyone that might be
Sounds
interested
good.
in following your content. Let's see. We've got time for maybe one more question. Any more questions before we wrap up, guys? We've got a lot of thanks and links dropping in the chat here. All right. Well, actually, if there are no more questions, maybe we should just wrap it up here. Oh, we got Abhinav typing something. Oh, he's saying thanks for the session. All right. So thank you guys for joining today's panel discussion. I learned a ton, and I hope you guys did as well. We're going to be posting the full recording on our YouTube channel. That's the Data Entrepreneurs on YouTube. And this is actually our final event of 2023. And so it's been kind of a crazy year. We went from 5 subscribers on YouTube to over 1,000 in the past few months. So thank you guys for being part of this community, for kind of sharing your journeys with those in the community. And I'm really looking forward to next year, where we're going to have a bunch more events. We're going to have interviews with people running VC funds. We're going to have workshops on Python. We're going to be learning. I'm going to be interviewing like really like people doing big things in this space. So I'm looking forward to sharing those journeys as well, and for everyone to learn from those people in the community. So with that, let's thank the panelists for being part of for joining us today, and thank you all in the audience for joining.